Your first love is in town, and you didn't even tell me. He said I was being petty, that I needed to calm down.
But
The way he smiled at her, soft, familiar, like I no longer existed, told me everything. So I asked him one question. Do we need to get a divorce? He didn't answer. And that silence, that was my answer. People thought I married the perfect man. And for 3 years I didn't correct them. Professor Nathan Hale, handsome in an effortless way, sharp-witted, bookish, patient. He never forgot our anniversary, made tea when I was sick, and always wrote reminders on the little chalkboard by the front door. Don't forget your gloves. It's chilly
today,
to the world. He was brilliant. To me, he was gentle. We lived a quiet life, the kind that felt handwoven. Morning coffee brewed before I got out of bed. A text every afternoon. Want me to bring dinner? And every Friday, without fail, he picked me up from work in that slightly battered gray sedan, with a flower tucked into the cup holder. Our routines weren't exciting, but they were consistent, reliable, until the day everything changed. Her name was Sienna Monroe. I had heard about her before. The way you hear about the ghost that once lived in your husband's chest. Nathan told me about her when we were still dating. They'd been together for 4 years in college. Intense, passionate, serious. She left to study abroad, and he stayed behind. That was the end of it,
he said.
He never sounded bitter, just neutral, which is why I never thought twice when her name popped up in passing conversation until I did. It started
subtly.
A pause too long before replying to my messages. An empty lunchbox where there used to be my favorite pasta.
A
forgotten note on the chalkboard.
A day
when he didn't show up to walk me home. No explanation.
I got stuck in a
meeting, he said, kissing my cheek absently. The kind of excuse that was both harmless and hollow. Then the late night lectures, the unread messages, the unreadable eyes. I tried not to jump to conclusions. Marriages have seasons, I told myself. Maybe this was just winter. Maybe he was tired, distracted, burdened. But I knew better. I just didn't want to know.
It happened on a
Thursday. Nathan was in the shower, steam clouding the mirror.
His phone
charging on the nightstand. I wasn't snooping, not at first. I was just reaching for a hair tie, but then the screen lit up, a gallery app open, and one photo staring back at me. It was him.
And Sienna.
She was leaning in over a candlelit table, wearing red lipstick, and laughing with her hand tucked lightly under her chin. But it was Nathan's face that undid me.
He was smiling.
Not the polite classroom professor smile. Not the tired end of day one he gave me lately.
This was a
soft smile. Worm eyes crinkled, mouth tilted just enough to betray fondness. Intimacy recognition. I stared at the photo, my chest tightening with every
second.
I hadn't seen that expression in
years.
And not once had I ever seen it
directed at me that way.
He walked out of the bathroom moments later, towel around his waist, hair damp and curled at the edges. Did you need something? He asked, casual. I held up his phone. His eyes flicked to the screen.
He
froze. Where was this taken? I asked, my voice steady. Too steady, Nathan hesitated. Jason invited a few of us.
From the department, he said.
It wasn't a big deal. Sienna happened to be there. Did Jason also tell you to smile at her? Like that? His expression shifted. Chara, don't do this. Do what?
I
asked. Notice. I stared at him.
Your
first love is in town, I said slowly, my voice tight. And you happened to have a dinner with her and you didn't tell me? Nathan's eyes dropped for a
second.
Just 1 second, but it was enough. I didn't think it mattered, he said quietly. I let out a bitter
laugh.
Of course. Why would your wife, knowing about your romantic reunion with the one who got away, matter at all?
It
Wasn't romantic, he snapped. It was just dinner and the candlelight, the wine, the look on your face. I held up the phone again, the photo still glowing, like an open wound. He took a step forward, voice rising slightly.
It was
Just dinner, Clara. I gave a hollow
laugh.
Then why hide it? I wasn't hiding anything, he said quickly. I just knew you'd overreact. There it is. I said, you're right. I'm the problem.
Not the
Dinner, not the smile, not the fact that you've looked at me like a chore for months while lighting up like that for someone else. He shook his head. You're blowing this way out of proportion. Oh, I'm sorry, I said, voice sharpening.
Was I supposed to?
Look at that picture and clap? Maybe. Print it and frame it above our bed.
There's nothing going on, he snapped.
You're being petty. My breath caught.
Petty.
That was the word he chose.
You
need to calm down, and trust me, he added. Softer now, like I was a child throwing a tantrum. Clara, we've been married for 3 years. Don't throw it away over one
dinner.
I'm not throwing anything away, I said quietly. I'm trying to figure out if you already did. He didn't answer. Just stood there, jaw clenched, eyes dark and unreadable. And then I asked the question I never thought I'd have to ask. Do we need to get a divorce? Silence? That heavy, devastating silence. When Nathan spoke again, his voice was strained. Why would you say that? Because I saw your face in that photo, I said quietly. I saw how you looked at her. It was just a picture. Nothing happened. I'm not asking if something happened, I whispered.
I'm
asking if it mattered to you, because if it did, if you're still in love with her, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be your second place, Clara, he said, sounding tired. Don't throw around the word divorce like it's nothing. But it's not nothing to me. I didn't speak to Nathan again after the
night.
The next morning, he was in the kitchen like nothing had happened, humming under his breath while stirring
eggs.
He looked up when I walked in and smiled like we hadn't exchanged the word divorce 12 hours earlier. Coffee, he asked, already pouring mine. I took
it.
Saturday said nothing. Nathan acted normal, dangerously normal. That made it
worse.
He talked about a funny question a student asked him mid-lecture, mentioned a new paper he wanted to
write,
asked if I wanted to watch that documentary I'd bookmarked weeks ago. I nodded to everything playing along, but my mind was elsewhere, spinning like a coin on edge. Maybe I had been rash. Maybe I'd overreacted. Maybe the warmth in that photo wasn't what I thought it
was.
And maybe I was lying to myself because I didn't want to believe it. Over the next few days, Nathan continued the performance. He ordered my favorite flowers to the studio, texted me midday with inside jokes only. We shared cooked salmon with honey glaze just the way I
liked it.
But it was all too perfect, too calculated. I noticed the changes when they came, small ones at first, like how he kept his phone angled away from me when texting, or how his eyes sometimes drifted in the middle of a conversation. I'd say something, and he'd pause before replying, like he'd just been pulled back from somewhere else, someone else. But I didn't push. I was waiting to see what he'd do next. Then one night, we were curled up on the couch watching a muted nature
documentary.
He was holding me gently, arm draped around my shoulder, his breath warm against my hair. And yet I felt cold. His phone buzzed just once. He glanced at it quickly, tilted the Screen so I couldn't see, then tucked it away like it never existed. We're out of fruit, he said suddenly. I'll run down and grab some. I blinked.
Yow.
Yeah, I'll be quick. Before I could remind him that the fridge was already full of apples, grapes, and oranges, he was out the door. I sat there for a long time, the silence settling around me like dust. The thing is, Nathan hated those apples from the corner fruit
stand.
Said they were too grainy, that they tasted like air pretending to be fruit. But when he came back 15 minutes later, he was carrying a bag of them, the same apples he once refused to eat. I watched him from the kitchen as he placed the bag in the fridge, his shoulders pausing when he saw the fruit already stocked. Without saying a word, he shoved the new apples to the very back like he was hiding them. Going to prep for tomorrow's lecture, he said casually. He didn't come to bed that
night.
I lay there awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking of all the times I'd made excuses for people, for him, for
us.
And now I was trying to decide if silence meant patience or surrender. The next morning, the apartment was still and empty. No lunchbox waiting for me like usual. On the chalkboard near the door, only a single line. Emergency. At school. Had to leave early. I stared at it. Nathan's department office was a 5-minute walk from our building.
His
first class wasn't until 8.
It was
barely past 6. What kind of emergency? Needed a professor before sunrise?
I
didn't linger on it.
Didn't have the
strength to start that internal battle again. Instead, I walked to the studio. In silence, the frost in the air sharp against my skin. When I stepped inside, Zoe was already there flipping through some documents, but she looked up with an awkward start when she saw me. Her expression was tight.
Morning, I said.
She nodded quickly. Morning. I put down my bag and pulled on my apron.
Did I
miss something? Zoe hesitated, her eyes flickering to her phone.
No, she said.
Nothing's wrong. Well, kind of. Have you checked the school forum today?
No, I said. Why?
You might want to. I raised a brow. What is it? She bit her lip. Just brace yourself. It's probably not as bad as it looks, but I took her phone before she could finish. The university's online forum wasn't exactly a source of credible journalism.
It was
known more for student gossip, anonymous confessionals, and petty rants about grading curves. But that morning, the top post was a photo, one that knocked the breath right out of my lungs. Bathing and Sienna. They were hugging beneath a massive banyan tree nestled in a quiet corner of campus few students ever went to. I recognized it instantly. It was the same spot Nathan had once shown me during our early days of dating. A hidden gem, he'd called it. Now it was the setting for someone else's moment. Their bodies were close. Too close. Her face pressed into his shoulder, his hand on her back.
No.
Distance between them. Faption. Professor Hale caught in the act. The threat below had exploded with comments. Is a hug really cheating now? I will.
Calm down.
It's not just a hug. Look at their faces. This is not just catching
up.
He's married, right? I feel sick.
My
prof hugged me when I graduated.
Not
like this, though. They look like they're about to kiss. This photo has vibes.
Tea
is hot and steeping. Secretary Jiang full. Dossier, please. I want updates.
I
scrolled, heart thudding, chest tight.
Zoe
hovered beside me. Are you okay?
I
nodded slowly, though my hands trembled. I felt like I couldn't breathe, like someone had slipped a plastic bag over my head. Of course, they didn't expect anyone to be there under that tree. That was why they chose it. Why Nathan felt safe enough to hold her like that, but Someone had been there, and now everyone had seen it. Zoe took the phone gently from my hand. I stared at the floor.
I
Knew, I whispered.
knew what?
She asked, softly. That this wasn't over, I said.
I just didn't want to admit it.
I didn't cry after seeing the photo under the banyan tree. I didn't scream or break things or rush to confront him. Instead, I went back to my desk, picked up my pencil, and began sketching over the unfinished lines of a new commission.
A
Woman curled inward, protecting something no one else could see.
It was
Easier to stay quiet, harder to feel everything at once. But something inside me had settled, like water that finally stopped thrashing after a storm.
I
Didn't need to find them holding hands or tangled in a bed I never touched. That hug beneath the banyan tree was enough. A betrayal didn't need to be naked to be real. By noon, I had already texted my cousin Julian. Are you free today? I need a divorce agreement.
He
Replied within minutes. Come to the office whenever. I'll clear my schedule. I told Zoe I'd be back in a few hours and walked the few blocks to Julian's firm. It was tucked inside a clean glass building, too modern to feel welcoming. But I didn't care.
the receptionist.
Waved me through. I didn't need an appointment. Julian and I had grown up together like siblings. He once punched a boy in 6th grade who called me weird for drawing faces in the margins of textbooks. When I stepped into his office, he looked up and frowned.
Did
Something happen? I want to file for divorce, I said without sitting. Julian blinked.
what?
I don't want to talk about it, I said. I just need the paperwork. He hesitated.
Clara.
I raised a hand. I'm fine.
You don't look fine. I
Don't have time to look fine.
that
Seemed to do it. He picked up his pen.
fine.
I'll prep a draft and send it to Grace to double-check. Grace, his wife, also my closest friend, ran a private OB-GYN clinic. She'd probably guess everything before I said a word.
I
Turned to leave. Wait, Julian said. Clara, are you absolutely sure?
I'm
Sure, I said. I want it done before dinner. He stared at me for a second. Longer, then nodded. I was walking back toward the studio when I got a text from an unknown number. That's me.
just coffee.
I want to see the woman he
Married.
Hannah, my stomach clenched. She didn't even bother pretending.
No.
Fake apology, no denial, just confidence. As if she had already won. I almost deleted the message. But then I thought, no, let's meet, Sienna. Let's meet properly. The cafe she chose was near the university. Of course, it was one of those charming little places with rustic lighting and bookshelves lining the walls. Students clacked away on
Keyboards.
couples leaned in over lattes, and she sat in the center of it, all like a page from an old romance novel. She looked up and smiled when she
Saw me.
the kind of smile that said, I'm already winning. CL, she said, standing like we were old friends. Thanks for coming. I didn't return the smile. Let's make it quick. She tilted her head. You're more graceful than I expected. I didn't reply. She ordered a coffee for me without asking. I didn't
Drink it.
I just wanted to meet the woman Nathan chose to marry, she said, voice light and sugar-coated. After all, it was quite sudden, wasn't it? The marriage, I said nothing. She leaned in slightly. You know, this place used to be our spot. Nathan and I used to sit right at this table. Isn't that funny? I met her gaze, calm and even. Very, her smile twitched. You're pretty. In a quiet way, she said. Plain but
Soft.
I can see why he might have settled. I gave her a pleasant smile. Really? That's interesting because when a man settles, he usually doesn't look at his wife the way Nathan looked at me. Every morning for the past 3 years. Sienna's expression flickered. Maybe he was pretending. I leaned forward.
Slightly.
And yet he never married you. Even after 4 years. She stilled. Funny, I said softly.
You studied abroad. He
let you go. Maybe he realized real love doesn't pack a suitcase. Sienna's fingers tightened around her cup. Careful, I said. You'll break it. She started then stopped. You don't understand what we had.
You're right, I said.
I don't because what I have with him is legal and what you have is wishful. Her jaw clenched.
I
stood. You asked what kind of woman he married. Now you know. I walked out. Before she could speak again, behind me, I heard the porcelain shatter. By the time I returned to the studio, Zoe was pacing. She looked up wide-eyed. Clara, it's everywhere. I raised a brow.
What is?
She grabbed her phone and held it
out.
The forum post, the one with the photo beneath the banyan tree, had gone viral. Hundreds of shares, reposts,
threads.
Even some professors had commented anonymously to express
concern.
Zoe shook her head. This isn't just gossip anymore. The administration saw it. They've scheduled a disciplinary hearing. Students are already calling it unethical. I didn't say anything. Just walked over to my desk and sat down.
A
few hours later, Nathan showed up at the studio. He looked like he hadn't slept.
Clara, he said.
I didn't look up.
Can we talk?
I kept sketching. They're going to suspend me, he said. There's a formal inquiry. The forum post got out of hand. Unfortunate. He stepped forward.
Will
you say something? Help clarify things. I looked at him. Clarify what? That it wasn't. Look, you know how people exaggerate. It was just a hug. I was
there.
You could tell them I wasn't
cheating.
You want me to lie? Just help me fix this. I studied his face.
He
looked tired, frantic, like a man who set his house on fire and now couldn't find a hose. I'll help you, I said. Finally, his shoulders sagged in relief. Thank you. If you sign the divorce papers, he froze.
What?
You want to protect your reputation. Fine, but you don't get to keep me while doing it. His mouth opened, closed.
You're
serious? I held up the envelope.
Sign
it, I said. And I'll say whatever makes you look innocent. Nathan didn't sign the papers that day. Instead, he left the envelope on the edge of my desk, untouched, and walked out without another word. I watched him go, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. Zoe closed the door behind him and exhaled slowly. He's not going to sign it, is he?
He
will, I said without looking up.
How?
Do you know? I opened my laptop because I'm about to give him a reason. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I poured a cup of black tea, wrapped myself in a wool blanket, and sat on the studio couch with my phone and a notepad. Eli Monroe's social feed was still public. For a man so smug, he was careless with privacy. It didn't take long to find them. One photo showed Nathan and Sienna at the beach, the sun barely rising. Behind them, Nathan's hair was windswept, his hand cupped gently around Sienna's face as she smiled up at him. Next post. A hiking trail. Mount Chong. Fong. Sienna leaned back against Nathan's chest while he tied her shoelaces. Eli had captioned it, "Brothers. Got hiking energy and hard eyes." Another video. This one made me flinch. They were by a creek grilling skewers. Sienna was feeding Nathan a bite of grilled corn, laughing as he pretended to drop it. His eyes were soft, playful, intimate. Eli's voice could be heard. Behind the camera. Still got it. Professor Hale. Still got what? I didn't want to answer that question. I opened a screen recorder app on my phone and captured every post. I saved all the photos, tapped through every clip so the timeline would show clearly. One by one, I compiled the evidence. I didn't have to say a word. The pictures spoke for
Me.
at 9:45 a.m. the next morning, I sent it all to Nathan. His lecture was scheduled to start at 9:30. I knew he checked his phone between classes.
Zoe.
Walked into the studio 20 minutes later, holding 2 lattes. I barely touched mine. I was staring at the door.
At
10:12 a.m., it slammed open. Nathan stood in the entryway, breathless and furious, phone still glowing in his
hand.
What the hell is this? He snapped. Zoe quietly slipped out.
I
Didn't stand. I didn't flinch. You tell me, I said calmly. Your screen. Recording my friend's stories now. Clara, how could you be so underhanded? Underhanded? I tilted my head. I only captured what was already public.
Your
Friend posted them. You posed for them. I just pressed record.
He stepped
Closer. This is blackmail. No, I said. This is documentation. He threw his phone onto the table. What are you? Trying to prove that you lied?
I said. Simply.
You told me nothing was going
On.
You said I was being petty, that I misunderstood. I didn't sleep with her. Oh, so that's the new line? I asked.
As
Long as there's no sex, everything else is excusable. Nathan ran a hand through his hair. You think I'm the only man who's ever been confused about his past? You're not confused, I said. You're
caught.
His jaw clenched. You said some awful things to Sienna that made me
Laugh. She cried.
he added.
Good. I said.
She should. She's not a victim here.
You
Told her she's the other woman that she's secondhand. I raised an eyebrow. Tell me where I lied. He didn't answer. Instead, he sat down hard on the edge of the coffee table, rubbing his temples. You really hate me now, don't you? He murmured.
I don't hate you, I said. Softly.
That would mean I still care. He looked up, and for the first time I
Saw it.
not anger, not arrogance, but
Fear.
you're really going to go through with the divorce?
I already did, I said.
You're the only one who hasn't signed. Nathan stared at the floor for a long
Time.
Then slowly he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the unsigned agreement. I was hoping you'd change your mind, he said quietly. I didn't respond. He took out a pen, clicked it. His signature was quick, familiar. The same one I used to admire on lecture flyers and book dedications. When he was done, he looked up at me. I love you, Clara. I closed the folder without blinking.
You don't get to say that anymore. He didn't argue.
He stood, took his phone, and left without another
Word.
When the door clicked shut, I released a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Outside, the sun was rising higher, warming the windows. Inside, everything felt colder. But it was over. He had signed, and I was finally free. By the time the divorce certificate arrived in the mail, the frost had deepened, and the city had begun preparing for snow. I stood by the mailbox with the envelope in hand, fingers numb, breath visible in the air. I didn't open it until I got home.
I didn't need to.
I already knew.
He signed. It was real now.
I was no longer Clara Hale, just Clara Evans again.
And
that suited me just fine. The next day, I hired a student moving crew, the kind Zoe always recommended. Hardworking, discreet, eager to make a little extra
cash.
They didn't ask questions. I gave them a checklist with every item I owned. In that apartment, from books to
Bedding. Some things I didn't want.
anymore, but I wasn't going to leave anything behind for Sienna Monroe to sleep in or wear, especially not what belonged to me or my child. At 6 months pregnant, I could still hide the small bump under my winter coat. I hadn't told
Nathan.
I didn't plan to.
He didn't deserve to know.
I timed the move perfectly. Nathan was usually home by 5 on Fridays, and I wanted to look him and
Her in the eye.
when the moving van
Pulled up outside the building, I
climbed out wearing a charcoal wool coat and a deep red scarf. My belly was invisible beneath the layers. The front door of the apartment opened just as we reached the steps. Nathan stepped out, keys in hand. First, he looked surprised. Then, "Please, Clara," he said, walking
toward me.
"You came?" "No," I replied flatly. "I came for my things." Behind him, I heard the sharp click of heels. Sienna appeared at his side, dressed in white, lips pink and curled like sugar icing. She wrapped her arm around his. "Miss Clara," she said sweetly. "Nathan didn't want you to feel awkward, so he already packed everything for you.
It's
All in the storage room." I didn't even blink. I turned to the team leader, a tall, broad-shouldered boy named Ren. Split into 2 groups. One checks the living room, kitchen, and storage.
the
Other goes through the bedroom and study. Use the checklist. Mark what's missing. Sienna's smile faltered. "Nathan did it himself. Surely you trust him." "This isn't about trust," I said calmly. "It's about clarity. Better to verify now than argue later." Nathan looked uncomfortable. I didn't care.
I
Stepped inside without waiting for permission. The apartment was warm, familiar, and somehow foreign, like a place I used to know, but no longer belonged to. My eyes lingered on the framed photos still on the hallway wall, ones we took in our first year of marriage. Nathan hadn't taken them down, but he hadn't looked at them either.
the
Movers got to work quickly, checking off kitchenware, clothes, books. I stood in the master bedroom doorway, watching one of them open the wardrobe.
Make sure you
"Separate the bedding," I said. "Guest room quilts go in one bag, master room in another." Sienna stepped in behind me. "You're really taking the blankets."
They
"Were part of my dowry," I said without
turning.
"They're just blankets. They're handmade, custom woven. My grandfather commissioned them before he passed away." Her voice sharpened. "Who wants to sleep in your old bedding anyway?" I turned to face her. "Apparently you do. You've been using them for weeks." She flushed. "I didn't know." "No need to apologize. I'll have them dry cleaned before I donate them." Her face twisted.
To where?
"Animal shelter," I said casually. "Even strays deserve warmth, and unlike some people, they don't steal what doesn't belong to them." Sienna fell silent. Nathan stood awkwardly by the door, holding a half-filled box. "Clara," he said carefully, "can we just keep things civil?" I smiled at him. "I'm being perfectly civil, wouldn't you say?"
Ren
Approached a few minutes later, clipboard in hand. "We've packed most of it, but a few of the marked jewelry pieces are missing." I held out my hand.
let me see.
I scanned the list. Wedding gold for my parents, 2 heirloom bracelets, a necklace from my grandmother.
Gone.
"That's impossible," Nathan said. "I packed everything myself." I looked at Sienna. He stiffened. Nathan followed my gaze. "Did you touch Clara's jewelry?" Her voice went high. I didn't. No, it was hers. "I thought you gave it
To me.
Nathan's jaw tensed. "Why would I give you her family heirlooms?"
She
Clutched his arm. "I didn't mean to take anything. I just thought it was part of the stuff she didn't want." I turned to Nathan. You checked every box, right?
He
Didn't answer. One of the movers returned holding a small velvet pouch.
I
Found these in the second bedroom. A closet, tucked behind the shelves.
I
Took it, opened it. There they were, the missing pieces still in their original boxes, still shining. I walked to the table, pulled out the few Nathan had given me personally. Small anniversary gifts and apology necklace, a birthday pair of earrings, and placed them aside. You can keep these, I said.
but I'm
Taking everything else. Sienna looked, ready to speak again, but I held up a
hand.
don't. Just don't. Her lips pressed into a line. I turned back to the movers. Check every drawer twice and grabbed the toolbox from the closet. Even that? Ren asked, half teasing. Yes. I bought it behind me. Sienna muttered. You're really taking everything.
I
Looked at her.
seems like you enjoy
Secondhand goods, Miss Sienna. Might I suggest opening a recycling center?
you
Already have the inventory. Other people's husbands, other people's homes, other people's jewelry. Behind me, one of the college boys, a wiry guy with messy hair and a tongue too quick, muttered, Yeah, but husbands don't count as recyclables. Nobody wants trash. There was a pause, a stunned silence, then a hard smack on the back of his head. Apologize, his teammate hissed. I burst out laughing.
you're
Hired forever, I said, handing him an extra tip from my coat pocket.
we
Finished packing everything. I walked out last. Nathan followed me to the front door. Clara, he said one last
time.
Do you really hate me that much?
I
Looked at him, really looked
he was
tired, hollow, smaller than I remembered. I don't hate you, I said.
I
Just finally see you. And I walked away. I didn't look back after that final move.
out.
I didn't check his messages, and I never responded to the dozen missed calls that came after I walked out of our old apartment. The movers had been
paid.
the boxes stacked neatly in my new
Place.
The room still echoed slightly when I walked, but I liked it that way. It felt clean. Zoe brought over soup the next day. She'd started hovering more since I left Nathan. Quietly loyal.
She
Didn't ask about the baby, but she'd seen the way I held my coat tight.
the
Way I flinched when I bent over too.
quickly.
He knew. You really don't want to tell him? She asked gently.
No, I
Said that part of my life is over.
and
It was for me at least, but not for
them.
Zoe brought the next bit of gossip. With her usual dramatic flourish. They're trying to get married, she said, flopping onto the studio couch. Nathan and Sienna. I raised a brow already. Apparently, she's been pressuring him since the ink dried on your divorce.
I
Turned back to my sketch pad. Let me
guess.
he said. It's too soon.
Two.
Bad you weren't in the room, so he said, grinning. You would have gotten it. Word for word. Nathan did what Nathan always did, calculated risks and made decisions like he was editing a syllabus. He told Sienna that getting remarried immediately after a scandalous divorce would draw too much attention, that the school board was still watching, that faculty gossip hadn't cooled down yet, that it wasn't the right time. Hannah didn't care.
He
Wanted validation, legitimacy, public proof that she had won. And when she didn't get it, she snapped. 2 weeks later, an anonymous post appeared online. It didn't stay anonymous for
long.
screenshots of text messages, blurry photos from the forum, a timeline of their meetings, all neatly arranged, like a PowerPoint presentation posted to a student-run news page with the headline, Professor's Affair, a timeline of betrayal. The implication was clear. Nathan Hale had been in a relationship with Sienna Monroe, a former student. While still married to me, they used his own department photos, class schedules, Sienna's posts, Eli's videos. Everything. Within 24 hours, the university launched a formal investigation. Within 48, Nathan was suspended. Within a week, he was fired. And Sienna, she vanished from campus. Temporarily, because she had bigger problems coming. Julian, my cousin, called me 3 days after the scandal broke. Remember Eli Monroe? He asked. The arrogant idiot who posts hiking selfies. I replied, yeah, that one. What about him? I just brought down his family's food business. I blinked. You.
What?
Julian sounded smug. Turns out, they were cutting costs, mixing low-grade preservatives into their packaged food and selling it as organic. Factory workers kept quiet, but one of them came to our firm after her kid got sick. You took the case? I chased the
Case. Why?
He hesitated. Let's just say after what happened to you, I don't like the Monroes. I sat down stunned. Also, he added, Sienna's name came up as a silent partner in the family's wellness snack brand. Of course she did. She stunned Clara. Julian said, their accounts are frozen. Their reputation is trash. No manufacturer will touch them. And Nathan, Julian
Paused.
still clinging to her for now. Probably because he has nothing left.
I
Said nothing. Just leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. Funny how quiet the world becomes after it explodes. In the following weeks, I watched the headlines come and go. Professor fired amid scandal. Monroe, family business, sued for unsafe practices. Silent partner revealed in fraudulent snack company. Former Professor Hale spotted alone in Mapleton. Eventually, the three of them, Nathan, Sienna, and Eli, disappeared from public view. The Monroes quietly declared bankruptcy. Sienna lost all her investor backing. Nathan lost his career and most of his income. They planned a wedding. Now they couldn't even afford a florist.
Zoe showed me a photo she found
Online. Nathan exiting a low-cost clinic. Looking thin, drawn, hollow-eyed.
He
Looks old, she whispered. He looks like a man who finally got what he asked for. I said. I closed the photo and put my phone face down. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel angry. I felt nothing. Later that evening, Zoe brought over tea and asked if I'd seen the latest news on the university forum. They've erased his faculty profile.
I
Nodded. Someone commented, I guess karma really does have tenure. That made me smile just a little, but it was
real.
the day my daughter was born. The sky was overcast, soft with snow clouds that never quite let go. I named her Hope, no middle name, no trace of his. She came into the world quietly with her tiny fists curled at her chest and her breath barely audible. I held her against my skin and felt the thrum of something I hadn't felt in months.
Peace.
Real peace. I never told Nathan about her. I didn't feel cruel, only certain. He had been given his chance over and over again, and with every opportunity, he chose someone else.
I
Wouldn't let him choose her now just because everything else had fallen apart. My baby didn't need a father who only looked back when everything else burned down. She needed a mother who never looked away. I changed my number a week after Hope was born. Quietly signed the lease on a new space for my studio in a sleepy street near a public garden. Zoe helped coordinate everything. New address, new mail system, and new name played outside the door. I left no forwarding address, no trace. Zoe texted me every few days with updates, though she always prefaced them with, feel free to ignore this nonsense.
But I
Never did because the chaos on the outside had become almost comedic from where I sat. Apparently, Nathan had started showing up at the old studio, confused to find it shut down.
He called
Zoe repeatedly. At first he tried. Politeness, then guilt, then begging.
I just want to talk to her.
Tell Claire I miss her. Please, I need to see her even once. If she's okay, that's enough.
He
left voicemails, emails, even tried calling from burner numbers when I didn't answer. Of course, he didn't know. I couldn't answer. I never gave him the chance. Zoe, ever the ferocious gatekeeper, lied through her teeth.
I
told him you were traveling to heal, she said once, stirring sugar into her
coffee.
Said the studio's shut temporarily.
He believed me.
Sounded all noble about it too, like I understand. She needs space. I raised an eyebrow. He said, tell her she can always call me like he's some loyal golden retriever waiting by the door. I didn't laugh, just looked down at my baby girl asleep against my chest. So he said slowly. Most women would at least be tempted to reply, just to say something. Even if it's to tell him off.
I'm not most women, I said.
No, you're not. She agreed. You're better. She paused. Do you want me to reply for you? I glanced at her. Hope made a soft sound in her sleep, curling deeper into me. I kissed her tiny forehead. No, I said. Who cares what he wants? Zoe smiled.
I'll take that as a no, she said.
But just so. He's miserable.
Good. It
wasn't even spiteful. It was just fact. The last message Zoe forwarded me one. She didn't dare respond to herself, was the most pitiful yet. Does she hate me that much? I deleted it without reading
the rest.
If he had to ask that question. Now, after everything, he didn't deserve the answer. Snow finally fell in February. Thick, quiet, and late.
The
kind of snow that makes the city move. Slower, softer. As if the world had pressed pause. I sat by the window in my new apartment, cradling hope in my arms. As the flakes drifted down past the
glass,
her tiny fingers curled around one of mine, strong despite how small she still was. He had my nose and, thankfully, none of his eyes. Sometimes I thought about telling her one day about Nathan, about what he had meant to me. Before he didn't. But that day was far
away.
For now, she only needed warmth, stability, a home built on something
real.
And that's what I gave her.
Zoe
visited every week, sometimes with groceries, sometimes just gossip, sometimes both. You'll love this, she said one afternoon, grinning as she kicked off her boots. Sienna finally snapped. She hadn't already. She called the media on herself. Gave some long-winded exclusive interview about loving the wrong man and being misunderstood. Said Nathan betrayed her too. I snorted. Did anyone care?
Nope. Comments roasted
her alive. They called her a discount villain in a bad drama.
I didn't laugh.
Not exactly, but I smiled. That was enough. Zoe leaned forward on the couch. Nathan's nowhere to be found now.
Word.
Is he moved back to his hometown? Crawled back? You mean basically no job, no reputation, no money? And she added, her grin widening. No wife. I raised an eyebrow. They didn't get married.
Nope.
After all that pressure, he stalled so long she gave up and leaked everything. Herself. Backfired like crazy. Then when her family's food scandal broke, she had nothing left to bargain with.
I
remembered what Julian had told me.
How?
Sienna was listed as a silent partner in the Monroe snack brand.
How Julian had
exposed everything with court footage, financial records, and a casual smirk. Eli's family was blacklisted.
Investors ran.
And with them, Sienna's last threat of power snapped. They're both broke.
Zoe said.
and no one wants them.
I
Reached for my tea.
Fitting. Zoe glanced.
At Hope, now dozing in her bassinet. Beside us. Do you think he knows?
No, I
Said, and I'd like to keep it that way. You don't ever want him to see her?
I
Looked at my daughter. So peaceful.
So,
Untouched by his betrayal. So mine.
no.
I said again, this time with certainty. He doesn't deserve her or me.
Zoe sat.
Back, nodding slowly. We sat in silence. For a few minutes, listening to the sound of Hope breathing gently.
Outside.
Snow blanketed the street in white, hiding the cracks in the pavement, the scuff marks on the curb. The city looked
Clean again.
I visited the new studio too. Days later. Still smelled like fresh paint and lemon cleaner. I'd only just started setting things up. Empty frames. Against the walls, a coffee machine. Waiting to be unboxed, rolls of canvas. Leaning in the corner. I brought Hope. With me, bundled in a soft fleece blanket. She didn't cry once, just watched me quietly with her wide eyes. Like she already knew she belonged here.
2.
I took a small photo of her and
Pinned it above the desk.
beside it I wrote her name in pencil.
Hope. No.
Surname, just the word. Zoe would probably tease me later for the symbolism, but I didn't care.
It was
True. This child, this new life, this quiet rebuild, it was all born from the ruins. And unlike Nathan, I had chosen
it.
the last update I ever got about Nathan came from Julian. He called my office, Julian said. Tried to find you. Said he wanted to make amends. What did you say? I told him you were gone.
I
Nodded. Want me to block his number permanently? Julian asked. I smiled. Faintly. No need. You already had no way. Back in that night, after Hope had fallen asleep, I curled beside her on the couch and opened the window.
Slightly.
The snow was still falling. The world was so quiet it felt like it was just ours. I brushed a strand of hair from her forehead and whispered, "We're going to be fine."
And for the
First time in a long time, I truly believed it.